as the terrible green moon, Morsleep, was pulled closer to the planet by the ousted Skaven Grey Seer clan. The jungles of Lustria stirred with the cold-blooded resolve of the Lizardmen. While the defenders of the world bleed to fulfill their ancient duty assigned by the Old Ones, political turmoil brought on by a massive invasion into Nagaroth reached a critical moment. Welcome to our new episode on the end times of Warhammer Fantasy, where we will cover the fall of Lustria. As you might have gathered so far, the end times wasn't really a sudden event, requiring massive wars all over the world to play out before anything resembling an end could be achieved. As such, it takes a while for us to tell you about it all, but that's not so bad, as these days it's easier than ever to get content delivered right to your ears all the time. And by that I mean this video is brought to you by Raycon. Raycon Everyday Earbuds are high-end wireless earbuds at a low-end price. So low in fact, you can get more than one pair and be covered in case you lose them. That will make sure you can seamlessly enjoy audio content at any time, with noise isolation for when you really want to listen, and awareness mode for when you want to check in on the world around you. From commuting to cooking to lazing out in the sun, everything gets better with the audio under your control. Raycons come with a base station for charging, which is small enough to carry with you also for a constant power supply whenever you need it, and there are various tips to fit on the buds so that they won't fall out. Our producer has been using Raycons for 2 years and absolutely loves them, and now we'll give you the chance to get some for yourself at a discount. Go to buyraycon.com/WAW to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. Before elves, before dwarfs, before men, the Old Ones arrived upon this world. Then came chaos, and the great plan of the Old Ones was unmade. We are the last of their servants, and only by our hand shall the great plan be restored, with the total defeat of the usurping younger races. Inscription upon the eastern boundary stone of the temple city of Hexoatl. During the end times, the eldest race played a critical role in preserving their own kind by the time the planet had truly begun to sunder under the pressure of demonic invasion and Skaven interference. Their duty was ancient, having been spawned from blessed pools in the first primordial jungles by the Old Ones, makers of the now collapsed polar gates. While many believed that the rise of chaos made the great plan of the Old Ones now impossible to complete, that did not deter the Lizardmen armies from intervening during the end times. Thus, a massive cosmic battle between Slann mage priests and Grey Seers overlooked the raging battles in the jungles below. We came upon a small, ruinous platform. On top of this were arrayed a group of skinks and the larger and more ferocious warriors called Saurus. Sat in front of them, on a golden carrying throne, was a creature like a great bloated toad. This I had not expected, though some Norsemen I had questioned back in the Old World had told me that such creatures existed, and were indeed the priests and rulers of the Lizardmen. They were called the Slann. Extract from the Tale of Marco Columbo, circa 1492 IC. From the factions of Order, the Lizardmen sport the most physically diverse roster of warriors and roles in their caste-based society. The political and religious leaders were Slann, massive toad-like mage priests that ruled the jungles atop golden ziggurats with powerful magic. While the eldest of their kind were dead or lost to time, the Slann were the descendants of those who had seen the Old Ones with their own eyes. The older the Slann, the more power they were given within their caste. When the Slann mobilized to war, the remaining 4 core species of Lizardmen served their role within the armies of the Defenders of the World. The bulk of Lizardmen footmen were brutish, cold-blooded Saurus warriors. Gifted with natural scaly armor and the ravenous appetite of a carnivore, the Saurus formed the bulk of the infantry and acted as warriors and guardians of Lizardmen temples. Their purpose was warfare and nothing else. For manual labor, the Kroxigor was spawned. Standing at a staggering 2 stories tall and extremely simple-minded, they served as construction workers and hulking berserker warriors on the battlefield. Their spawning was rare and was from the same pool as their comparatively tiny siblings, the fleet-footed and social skinks. The armies of Lustria during the end times even commanded feral carnosaurs or behemoth bastillodons, giving the Lizardmen a cold-blooded killing advantage over their enemies in the coming battles. As the green moon drew near, and the skies turned red and crackled with impending doom, the Lizardmen consulted their plaques and stone relics as the greatest invasion on their continent unfolded. I have seen the world's demise. Morslib, the accursed orb, waxes against crimson skies. Magic rises and reality subsides, leaving only madness in its wake. Vermin cease their gnawing and swarm to the surface, answering their horned master's call. First to fall are the temples of the Old Ones, abandoned by defenders who know that the end draws near. Prophecy of the End Times. The cosmic battle between Slann and Grey Seers continued for months, with the moon seeming to creep closer and closer to the planet's surface each day. One by one, the Slann slowly fell into a comatose state as they exhausted themselves, giving the Skaven Grey Seers an increasing advantage over the Lizardmen. They continued to fall until only the oldest and most powerful Slann, the Lord of the Solar City, Mazdamundi, remained to contest the Ratmen Seers. As the power of the Slann waned, warpstone meteors broke off from the green moon and hailed upon the jungles with explosive, fiery destruction. Before Lord Mazdamundi slipped into a deep sleep, he expended all his cosmic power to limit the blast caused by the oncoming impacts. Then, the moon stopped growing in the sky, and the power of the Grey Seers seemed to falter simultaneously. Grey Seer Thanquol had promised all his former clanmates' warpstone horde to Eshin, in exchange for cementing himself as the chiefest Grey Seer. As Thanquol succeeded in his scheme, the meteor impact upon the planet summoned a titanic chittering from the earth below Lustria. An explosion ruptured the brass bell deep in the Temple of the Horned Rat. The very same rats that had expunged the mastermind of the plan to crash the moon to Lustria were suddenly assassinated by Clan Eshin Night Runners, their throats cut and their tails sliced from their bodies. Seeking to reclaim their realm of old, Clan Pestilens attempted to reconquer the temple city of Quetzal in the imperial year of 2489 IC. The plague monks emerged with such numbers and deployed so many plague furnaces that swaths of the jungle were covered in pestilent mist. The unnatural cloud could be seen for miles, rising like a thunderhead above the canopy. Only an untimely meteor strike prevented what was sure to be a victory for the pestilent rat host. Accounts of the Battle of the Mist, circa 2489 IC. In a sea of living fur, thousands upon thousands of ratmen erupted from the earth like a fat, verminous boil. The mass tunneling to the surface was led by Plague Lord Kriegix of Clan Pestilens, commanding legions of slaves and plague monks toward the surface. Raiding the jungles with their uncountable numbers, Kriegix's armies carved a warpath towards Tlaxtlan, the City of the Moon. Saurus warriors emerged from their guarded temples, and skinks hunted the ratmen unseen in the jungle. The Lizardmen lacked siege weapons, however, and combined with the sudden eruption into Lustrian territory, the temple city saw a harrowingly fast advance through their defenses. Breached in 12 locations, the Skaven hordes pursued the temple guardians into the centermost pyramid and captured 2 Slann mage priests. Carrying them to the top of the pyramid, chanting and chittering, they devoured the priests alive and sent a clear message to the retreating Lizardmen. As the Lizardmen retreated, their commander, Lord Axchar, secured the escape of the Slann Lord Tetueko. In the chaos of the retreat from Tlaxtlan, the Slann reached his toady finger up to the sky and ensnared a passing comet with the last of his power. Just as the temple city fell beneath the legion of rats, the comet finally collided with the city, sending a shockwave of fire and destruction across miles and miles of jungle. To the Lizardmen, it was better to eradicate the temple and its inhabitants than to allow the Skaven to defile and usurp relics of the Old Ones. Then, with the first portion of the invasion broken by the meteor, the Lizardmen retreated to Itza, the first city, to participate in one of the bloodiest battles in End Times history. Led by the great potentate of Pustulates, Plague Lord Gritch, and the newly appointed Plague Lord Grillock, 10,000 Skaven slaves swarmed Itza from all sides. Learning from the failure in Tlaxtlan, the Plague Lords devised a plan to isolate the defending Itza armies and infect the Temple Guardians with nasty viruses and diseases. With the whips crack and the dreaded bells tolling, the slaves dug a moat of behemoth proportions around the capital of the Lizardmen Empire. The garrison was led by Texa, who had been given charge of Itza's protection, while the mighty Saurus warlord Krok-Gar led a defense in the neighboring Zwahotek. No armies nor invasion on the continent could outnumber the enormity of Skaven and Lizardmen soldiers in number at Itza. While the slaves dug, skirmisher night runners pillaged the surrounding settlements. Gutting their inhabitants overnight, they occupied the land and secured a foothold within the Lustrian jungle. However, the night runners were harassed every night by feral carnosaurs coming to satiate their hunger for warm blood flesh. Skink skirmishers fired silent blow darts through windows and alleys and carried off their prey to the canopy to eat the rat men alive. As the sun rose over the temple, Pterodon riders commanded the skies over Itza and flew from Skavenhold to Skavenhold to drop boulders over Skaven encampments. The Pterodon riders chased away the skirmishers just as reinforcements for Clan Pestilence, the Contagion Conclave, arrived. The virulent batteries were wheeled into firing range of Itza's outer shell. The Plague Claw catapults carried ammunition of infections like Red Pox, Seeping Pox, Scalamundrax, and the Oozing Eye Plague. On their flanks, the infamous acolytes of the Green Festers, the Cankerous Choir, and the Rotclaws chitter hungrily at the city they were infecting. After the Pterodon riders had regrouped, they brought another wave of falling rocks and blow darts to destroy the virulent batteries. However, for each destroyed siege engine, the innumerable horde of Skaven slaves pieced the weapon back together to continue launching more terrible sickness into the temple. The Lizardmen cohorts began to perish at an alarming rate, and Texa was forced to order his temple guardians to fall back to the heart of Itza and out of artillery range. The Skaven closed in to what they thought was a victory, until a sudden crack of crimson lightning sundered the cloudy sky above. The jungle stirred with the thunder of an approaching army. The Prophet of Sotek, a god of war and serpents, advanced on the rearguard of the Contagion Conclave. Kroxigor berserkers, red skink warriors of the Red Shields, and the chameleon sharpshooters of the Eyes of the Canopy led the slaughter of thousands of slaves and plague monks. Behind them, fire-breathing lizards, titanic bastillodons, and raptor cavalry swept forward and pushed the Skaven back against their created moat. As the rain fell, the moat turned into a bloody quagmire and swallowed the hordes backed against the pit. The elite regiments of the Skaven were slaughtered mere moments after the first charge, totaling all semblance of Skaven leadership. The rivers and streams ran red with the blood of a nearly instantaneous genocide as Clan Pestilence succumbed to a mass rout. With Itza still standing, the final limb of the Skaven attack on Lustria was repelled. Skaven warlock engineers employed optics at the City of Mist to sense the defending Lizardmen concealed within the foggy defences. Lord Hua Hua was discovered by Lord Blistrox in the Temple of Infinite Circuits and torn apart by plague monks. The Skaven quickly overran the second city without the Slann's conjured mist to defend it. However, as Clan Pestilence took Slanthwapeg, the armies of Krok-Gar responded to a plea from the city for aid and annihilated the surprised Skaven invaders. The apocalyptic struggle between Skaven and Lizardmen engulfed all reaches of Lustria and even places beyond. The Lizardmen, led by Lord Mazdamundi and Venerable Lord Croak, the first of the Slann, gathered at the solar chambers of Itza to offer a final grand act of defiance against the apocalypse. Mazdamundi sacrificed himself to expend whatever was left of his cosmic power to stop the falling moon finally, but was unable to prevent a portion of Morrslieb from crashing down into the planet. Lord Croak, having watched his pupil perish for the world, summoned the greatest magic of the Slann, the Shield of the Old Ones. A magical dome shielded the world outside of Lustria from the wall of fire that annihilated the continent at the price of Croak's life. As the two Slann sacrificed themselves to save the world for the moment, the pyramids of the Lizardmen took to the sky like floating fortresses. The Slann returned to the stars, leaving behind the remaining Lizardmen to see the end of the fated place through. Just as the continent of Lustria was unable to remain untouched by the apocalypse, further north to Nagaroth and Ulthuan, an invasion of Khorne marched under the bloody banner of Valkyr the Bloody. Her bloodied horde descended from the north, surprising the unprepared patrols and defences. It was only when rare survivors of the demonic attacks finally arrived at the Tower of Volroth that the realm of the Witch King was alerted to the renewed Chaos invasion into the realm. If they shall not bow to me, the rightful ruler of Ulthuan, then I shall see each tower crumble and every soul scourged in pain until they beg for my rule. Malekith, Witch King of Nagaroth. The Witch King, or Malekith by name, was born the son of Inarion the Defender, hero of elves during the ancient invasions of Chaos. However, when Malekith tried to claim Ulthuan for himself through cruel bloodshed, the flames of Asuryan, which were said to spare only the true heir of the Phoenix King from a burning death, left the prince near death and denied the Witch King his birthright. Taken to safety by his sorceress mother, Morathi, Malekith's burned body was encased within a suit of magical black armor, his brow crowned with a jagged black helmet. Assuming a persona of revenge and destruction, he sought to reclaim Ulthuan even as the end times drew near. Once alerted to Valkyr's advance, Malekith's fortresses and raiders prepared to engage the demons of Khorne. Foolishly, and characteristically in line with Dark Elven pride and avarice, Malekith's armies stood alone during each wave of the invasion. As their short-sightedness was exposed through the razing of Clark Carrand, the northeastern cities of Nagaroth finally agreed to coordinate. Lokhir Felhard's war fleets sailed out to challenge the Norscan longships, but could not stem the tide of vessels or prevent the landfall of marauders. If that were not damning enough for Carrand-Car's defense, an entire army of Skaven erupted from catacombs at the time of landfall and tore the city to shreds between three different armies. With a bloody, efficient swiftness worthy of Khorne, 3 of Nagaroth's 6 cities were taken. Supremely annoyed by the pressure from the northern fronts, Malekith was forced to delay his intended invasion into Ulthuan and focus all his efforts on preserving his remaining holds. In Ulthuan, the High Elves suffered their own losses to the demonic hordes. Refusing to lead the defense, Phoenix King Finubar isolated himself in his tower and came to the revelation that he and the kings before him were impostors, rulers who had cheated death from the flames of Asuryan through magical protection. The Witch King, projecting his spirit into the Phoenix King's observatory, taunted Finubar's lamentations and summoned a blood-letter demon of Khorne into the tower. Finubar, in his despair, allowed the demon to kill him in an act of suicide. The Witch King, atop the great black dragon Seraphon, pushed the armies of Chaos back north, clawing miles of territory back into Dark Elven control until the bloodied horde had reached the gates of Nagaroth. By now, much of Nagaroth was in ruin, and the planned invasion into Ulthuan was becoming increasingly impossible. It was here that Malekith's mother made him face the facts. With the true end times near, Morathi warned that pursuing the path of the Phoenix King would destroy all that had made him her son. Refusing to heed this warning, and with pride in his heart, Malekith abandoned his mother to summon all that were still faithful to the Witch King's call. Without his support, his kingdom burned behind the Black Arcs, as they sailed for one last invasion into Ulthuan. The next few videos in this series will be dedicated to the end times. But we're planning to cover the battles of many other fantasy, sci-fi and space opera universes, so make sure you have subscribed and pressed the bell button. Please consider liking and sharing, as it helps immensely. And don't forget to comment. We'll try to read and respond to every comment, as we want to know what you think about this video and which videos you hope to see in the future. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.